we are going to record this session. So if you don't want to be identified, please use the chat function and make sure your audio and your video is off. So I'm going to move to the breakout group leaders, and a lovely group they are too. And what I would like to do is if I can ask each of them in turn to introduce themselves and maybe give a little flavour of what the breakout group discussion was like. I'm obviously not going to talk about everything you talked about, but what you really felt that you gathered from that experience as you're talking. So if that's all right with you, Gerard, would you like to go first?
That's fine. So yeah, I'm Gerard Swan. I'm currently the chair of Quest. We've been involved with Gathering Voices for a few years now. So it's a privilege to be here again today. Yeah, there was quite a broad discussion, some of it on piste, some of it off piste, but certainly both speakers triggered a lot of thinking. One of the things that we commented on in the after the first speaker was, in that coming out process, there seems to be a significant assumption that we're about to enter into this mythical LGBT plus community. And very often that's quite a disappointing experience, because we find it's not a coherent community at all. And in actual fact, those different intersectionalities are in play. And the thing that was our predominant difference in the coming out process, we find that it's much more complex once we come out, and within what we thought was going to be this coherent community. There were lots of other comments in that first section. We'll maybe come into those in a bit more detail when we enter the bigger feedback. In the second section, I think one of the second session, we explored quite a lot around the systemic issues that are faced, and there are society or secular issues in relation to those identity characteristics around intersectionality. And then within our faith experiences, there are different, but sometimes overlapping issues. Sometimes churches are a little bit more welcoming than secular society. But in terms of the professional experiences of people, Ruby and Savvy both talked about their experiences at university and at work, and in those environments which were much more welcoming in some ways than their church-based environments. So those are a couple of the themes that came out, but there was a lot more.
Yes, I'm sure. Augustine, I know you were part of that group. Did you want to add anything to that? No, you're happy with that. That's absolutely fine. Okay, that's great. I'm just moving on then to now, Sue. Do you want to feedback with for the next group, or is Anne going to do that?
I'm okay to do that, or Anne, whichever.
No, well, you both do it if you like. If you want to just
Sue should go for with that
go
one.
first. Go first. Just say who you are and.
Okay, I'm Sue Say. I'm part of the Open Table Network at Liverpool, and I attend St Bride's Church also, which is a fully inclusive church. The discussion was amazing. We were talking about how we were quite inspired by both speakers. Then we talked very much in the first after Ruby, talking about inclusion, because we were talking about sort of our letters, and it was sort of triggered as well by the rainbow soup term. And we discussed a little bit around the inclusivity of allies, and the allies were a very big part of our soup, and we wanted as many of them to jump in as possible. We then, because of the nature of our group, we then talked about the overarching one for us was that we were women, and that oppression is still there, and it guides so much within the church. This established patriarchal sort of theme running through it. So we discussed that for quite a bit. Then we talked about the thing that I really enjoyed most, as the point was made, is that the oppressed are really quite sick of being gracious about it. So I quite enjoyed the discussion that went around that. We then looked at the labels, because that was the other thing. We gave ourselves those 10 labels, and it was pointed out that we might have given ourselves them, but other people do it for us, and that was less welcome. The point was made that it's a woman priest, not a priest who happens to be a woman, and we were quite irritated by that, because the comment was that as your genitals are not used for that job role, we don't really feel that that should be a definition that people put on you, and that those labels should be selected by us. The second session went on to develop some of those ideas in the sense of not taking other people's crap on, really, not having people use those labels to beat us up with, and that our strength was kind of holding on to the fact that actually sometimes we have to challenge that, and that the church wasn't awfully good at that at times. And basically the investment in the patriarchy, does that mean that people are going to have a willingness to move from using those differences to keep people in those oppressed positions, because they've got nothing to gain from it? I think that's about all I wanted to say there. Have I covered everything, Anne?
I think you've done really well. I mean, it was interesting that we were all women in our group, and therefore looking at the way that we have experienced things and oppressions, even though we're very different as women. But we're also having points that I think Sharon made at the end about, where is this patriarchal teaching coming from? Why does that narrative keep coming back? How can we get rid of that? But it is that oppressive narrative that is affecting all of us in all sorts of ways. So intersectionally, there is different manifestations, but the teaching really needs to be challenged, and the church needs to think about how it teaches inclusion. Otherwise, we're never going to challenge oppression. So I'll pass on to someone else.
No, very good points made. Thank you very much. And for the third group, I understand Jide is going to give us the feedback for that. Are you there, Jide? Ah, there you are.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes, I'm good to go. Hello, everybody. My name is Jide Macaulay. I'm the founder of House of Rainbow, a great friend of Open Table. I believe I found my own Open Table community in Manchester, so that's good to know. In our group, thank you, Nichole, for allowing me to speak.
I didn't give you a choice.
Thank you so much. In our group, I mean, we focus on what both Ruby and Stevie has shared, and I think one of the key areas is to take time to know each other, and I think that in their own personal story, they had wondered and hoped that people got to know them better. There are some commonalities between them. They are both of both British and heritage, from some part of the Commonwealth. So I think that to me was very crucial in how they presented, their talk as well. And the other area is also about the contrast with cultures, and which is very key, because again, the conversation around racism, came up for both of them, because again, in faith spaces, they also experience racism, not just in the wider society, but they experience racism in faith spaces. And of course, and in Ruby's presentation, Ruby focused a lot more on the place of women, particularly for queer women. And of course, the challenge not just go to the whole society, but it also goes to women who also ostracize or discriminate against queer women. So the voice and opinion of women that condemn and queer women is one of the areas that was quite contentious for her. in our group, we also look at, the role of the church, and where do we then begin to talk about the radical welcoming? It is important to highlight the intersectionality that we see in our society, issues around race, gender, sexuality, faith, and nationality. There is clearly a pattern of inequality even within our own communities. We're talking about, finding those communities at first. And sometimes, maybe for those of us who are Black or people of color, we don't see people that look like us in those spaces. So how do we create those spaces? I love the fact that in my group, a lot of people were citing books, that they read recently. And I think that was really good. So we do have a healthy library of books that we can refer to. And that was very good. I think Jared Robinson's book was mentioned, and Stephen Speller's book as well, called Radical Welcome, was mentioned, and Fierce Love by Jackie, I forgot the last name now. But I mean, those books were mentioned for a great good reason. And of course, we also recommend the Inclusive Church website so that people can find the right place to go to, so that they don't have to do the journey of helter-skelter trying to find the right church. A lot of communities are improving the radical welcome. And we talked also in response to, thank you so much. So just right, Fierce Love by Jackie Lewis. My handwriting must be really bad because it doesn't look like this in my note. So I think that the other thing that we talked about was the hashtag modern welcome. So even when a church says that all are welcome, we still need to question it, right down to are Black people welcome here? Are queer people welcome here? Don't just go through the whole motion about the church itself. So it is so important, to have all of those all together. And I think overall, we also talked about the importance of intersectionality, if I haven't talked about it already. But I think it's so important that in the radical welcome, intersectionality also have its place. And, our churches need to be more open to welcoming others. Nichole, have I done a good job?
You have done a very, very good job. Yeah, very, very good. I just thank you, because I would have just been, but also what David said, which I really liked. I think it was David that said that. Correct me, David, if I do get this wrong. But he also said that he doesn't say I'm not racist. He says that he is anti-racist. And I really liked that because he also said that when he grew up, it was very, very racist. So I think what he was also trying to say is about unlearning as well, but also realizing realizing like your thought process as well, and actually is that racist? Like what is it that's coming to your mind that actually is racist, and like why are you thinking that as well, and which I really, really liked. I shared as well that the LGBT community, that's like the only place where I've never experienced racism, which Kieran read on an anonymous feedback paper, and he just realised it was me being the only Black person that was at the event. But he really appreciated that I shared that, but also that it was saddening, but also just nice that it's a place where I do feel very, very safe as well. I can't think of anything else because I've gone really nervous and sweaty, so I'm going to stop talking.